my friends, I'm Victoria. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today's video, it is time. I'm gonna go through my best reads of 2023. I've been putting it off because I know this video is gonna be a lot of work. In total, I read 145 books last year. That's wild to me. I can't believe I read that many books. I'm very proud of myself. I don't think I will ever read that many books again because towards the end of the year, I hit a bit of a slump and I'm still in a slump. I don't know. I really burnt myself out there for a minute. I'm hoping I can get these filmed, get these up, and really get back into my groove with reading a book a week, which is usually what I strive to do. And hopefully more like 1 or 2 books a week would be ideal. But I'm excited to go through these books. Like I said, I read 145. I have 30, I believe I have 35 stars from last year. So I am so happy about this. I read so many good books last year and really popped off. I don't know. I am proud of myself and I just can't believe it. It was a really good reading year for me, probably the best ever, and well, definitely the best ever. And I have 30 5-star reads that I have to talk to you about and to recommend to you. For 5-star for me, it's just something that I loved and enjoyed, and it might not be perfect in the sense of writing, but perfect for my entertainment, and it made me feel some sort of way. So yeah, I also am going to quickly go through books that were almost 5 stars, that were super close, but they either just had one thing that was kind of not quite all the way there or didn't quite give me the 5-star feelings, but were really close that I think should be mentioned as well. So yeah, let's get into it. It's going to be a long video for sure. These starting out are not 5 stars, but they are darn close, and I wanted to recommend these to you as well because I think they are really solid, amazing reads. And first up is Delicate Condition by Danielle Valentine. Now, this is a retelling of Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby is one of my favorites, and sorry if you can hear my dog. Rosemary's Baby is one of my favorites ever. I absolutely love the idea of this pregnancy gone wrong, something's going on. And this meets all of the expectations for me. There were definitely some weird horror elements going on. There were definitely parts where I was like, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's scary. I feel like what kept me from giving it 5 stars was that it wasn't the most unique thing ever. I had such a fun time reading it and I absolutely love it. So yeah, if you are a fan of Rosemary's Baby or ideas of women and kind of feminist stories a little bit too, but within the horror realm, definitely pick this one up. Next is episode 13 by Craig Dou. Now this is one that keeps poking me. I kept thinking about it after the fact, and even now when I was looking at all my Goodreads books and I saw this one, I was like, I have to mention that one because it has stuck with me. It's kind of mixed media. We are following this TV crew that goes to haunted houses and trying to find and film something spooky, scary happening. And this one, they actually do find a haunted house. I really enjoyed the way that this was written. It is mixed media, so we're getting kind of journal entries from all the characters, as well as it kind of going through news stories and different things. And as far as books this year that I actually thought were scary, this is one of them. There were definitely parts where I was like, oh, this is so eerie. And it takes this spiral into a spiral. If you read the book, that might be funny to you, but it takes a spiral into this realm that I did not think it was going to go to. And it was definitely unique and different, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So if you are looking for a scary movie kind of told in a different kind of way, or you like the found footage kind of trope within scary movies, I would highly recommend this one to you. Next is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I am sure you've heard about this, so I'm not going to go too into it, but we have this woman who is an author and her friend is a very popular, successful author, and she's there when her friend passes away, and then she ends up stealing her friend's manuscript. And her friend is Asian, and our main character is white, and she ends up playing off this book as if she has written it. She's trying to be racially ambiguous to kind of get away with stealing this book. It's on the nose, has a lot to say. Some parts are really funny, some are a little bit eerie, and it does have kind of a spooky element in some parts. It's a really good and timely read, and I highly recommend it to anyone. I think this was a popular one this past year for many people. Next is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Now, this one's super close to a 5-star for me, but near the end, I just wish there was more. It was a little too short. I wanted more. Or into religious, culty horror. definitely pick this one up. We have this fundamentalist group that has this conversion camp, and they deem it like the most successful conversion camp in the country, and we are following our main character who they have some gaps in memory, but they are grappling with their sexuality, and things start coming to light, things start to spiral, and there's a few scenes that happen kind of early on that I was like, whoa, what? I was shocked by, and it also just like takes a turn totally different than what I thought it was going to be in the best way. And I loved it so much, and I wish that there was just more of it, because I would have definitely given it 5 stars, because I just felt like it was a bit rushed at the end. Next is Our Hideous Progeny by C McGill. I didn't give it 5 stars just because I had a hard time in the beginning. There was just a lot of info dumping, and I was just kind of like, okay, this is a lot of info, but it does end up coming to play and being kind of necessary later on. So then I was like, okay, that's fine. But this is kind of a retelling of Frankenstein in a way. We have a girl who is Frankenstein's niece, great niece, something like that. She's related to Victor Frankenstein in some way, and she's also a scientist. It is a historical fiction, so she's kind of like dealing with misogyny and people being sexist to her, and like she is so smart and educated and talented at being a scientist, but people won't take her seriously because she is a woman. So there's those elements there. It also hits on like colonialism and race, feminism, class, like so many elements are hit in here in a really seamless way. If you like a dark, classic, almost like slow burn horror feel, you will find that in here. And there's also a really great like friendship kind of sapphic romance in here too that I love. Really just loved where the story ended up going and how everything developed. It's so solid. Definitely give it a go. Next is Night's Edge by Liz Karen. She did comment on one of my videos that I made, and she's like, it's pronounced Karen, not Corinne. And this is actually going to be a series, so I did read the first book, and usually I'm not a series girly, but I am excited about the next installment of this. I also just feel like so many series are fantasy, so it's kind of exciting to have more of a horror thriller be made into a series. But this is about vampires, and it's a very unique take. We have mother-daughter relationships going on, and I really enjoy this, and I keep thinking about it after I read it. I read it in the summer, and this one just keeps coming top of mind. I love the family dynamics that it shows, and we're also like kind of showed back and forth between when people start turning into vampires. It's almost like an epidemic that they're having, to where people turn into vampires, and then present day to where we have a main character who is struggling to keep her mom alive and healthy while also like keeping it a secret that her mom is a vampire. It's so good. Very well written. I love the characters in here. There's also a bit of sapphic romance, which I love. Oh, my eyeliner's all messed up. But yeah, highly recommend. It's a great time. Next is Rouge by Mona Awad. I know this one is hit or miss for some people, but this was a hit for me. It was not my favorite beauty horror of the year, but it was really, really good still. It is all over the place. It is weird. We have a strange girl book with horror elements, and then we have the element of beauty and beauty standards, which I just find fascinating. This one is a surreal fever dream, and if you like books that are a little bit strange, a little bit different, and also follows kind of like women's POVs and kind of like the struggle of being a woman and growing up and aging, I think you would enjoy this. So yeah, it's a weird time, fun. It's a weird time, wild ride, and I definitely recommend it. Next up is Wayward by Amelia Har. This one is just a spooky, witchy time, and I absolutely love it. The atmosphere is really good. We have these 3 witches that are related by different generations. So we're like following 3 generations of these witches, and we're following one like during the witch trials, and one during like the early 1900s, and then their great granddaughter, and how they have overcome so much hardship and by the hands of men mainly. Definitely a lot of triggers here. It's not like a cozy witchy book at all. It definitely hits on some intense points, but I really love these characters. I love the story that it told, and just the different generations of these women and like them coming into their witchy power. It's just so good. Next is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a super short read. It's so fun. It's just a good time. We have this mannequin that our main character believes is murdering people. In his own roundabout way, he's like, well, let me actually murder them instead so that I can give them an easier death than the mannequin would give them. And it's very all over the place, super camp. If you like camp horror, I think you will like this. Just a great time, easy read. I read it in like one night. It's like 100 something pages. So I definitely recommend it. Also, Stephen Graham Jones is an amazing writer. And I really like his short stories. I also read The Night Cyclist, which was a really good short story by him that I enjoyed. So yeah, highly recommend. It's an easy, short, good time. Next is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This one is dark, witchy, spooky. We have witches that are actually bad, which I love. I feel like a lot of times with witches, they like want them to be like more of the good guy, but in this one, they actually make the witches do bad things, and I love that. It's like a historical fiction. We are set in this town, I want to say in the 1600s, maybe 1500s, this like little village, and it's very staunchly religious, and we end up having this character who is connected to the witches in the woods in some way, and then plagues start to happen, things start to go down, and there's also like some commentary on race in here, which I really loved. As far as like atmosphere, it kills it, perfect for fall, or like really if you just like want a darker, spooky read. Loved it so much, highly recommend. Okay, my friends, now we are actually on to my 5-star reads. So I'm gonna try to be quicker. I'm gonna try to be quick and go through these and tell you kind of why I love them. But first off, we have a short one called The Pram by Joe Hill. This is part of the Kindle Unlimited Creature Feature Collection. This is kind of another take on like Rosemary's Baby meets Amityville Horror. We have this family who have recently lost a child, and they end up leaving the city to move to this like weird rural community that's a little bit culty feeling. And our main character, the husband, is kind of struggling and grappling with the grief. I mean, his wife is too, but we're following the husband's point of view, which I thought was really interesting and unique. And him kind of obsessing, I mean, like, thinking that maybe there's something else going on, maybe that their baby is actually there. It's eerie, spooky. There were definitely parts where I was like, what? And it's so short, it's such a short read. So I definitely recommend it. Give it a go and just pick it up. You can read it in one sitting, easy. Next is another one from that Creature Feature Collection, and that is It Waits in the Woods by Josh Malerman. We have this girl who, when she was in high school, her sister went missing in the woods, and now that she's older, she's graduated, she's like, I'm gonna go in these woods and see if there's something actually out there. It's kind of like an urban legend that is true and that comes to life, and it has a very like Blair Witch Project kind of feel to it, because her and her sister used to always film like home movies and record, and she's recording in the woods. There's so many elements to this I love. I feel like the atmosphere is there. The woods are definitely scary. The creature is scary, and I just loved so much about it. And another one that's a really easy read. The audiobook for this is amazing. Highly recommend. The narrator does these amazing voices, and it really builds up the eeriness with it. So yeah, highly recommend the audiobook for this one. It's so good. Next is one I read more recently around the holiday season, and that is The 12 Days of Murder by Andrea Cordon. This one, when I picked it up, I thought it was going to be like a cozy mystery, but no, it's like a fast-paced thriller. It is set around Christmas, and the atmosphere, so good. We are in the Scottish Highlands. We start off on a train. We're going to the Scottish Highlands, and then it's like snowy and isolated. It was just so good. The atmosphere, killer. And speaking of killer, people start getting picked off. And I just felt like the way that it pulled in these stories, like Christmas stories and classic Christmas tales, like the 12 Days of Christmas, into this mystery and thriller was so smart. I feel like the kills were really good. There were some scary elements to it. I like the twist. I love the ending. I love the main character. I love everything that happened with this book, and it was just like ticked all the boxes for me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, put this on your list for a Christmas read for next year. Like, I feel like I never give them 5 stars because they're always just kind of like either a little cheesy or like kind of lazy or gimmicky. This one was not. This one was so successful in what it was doing, and I highly recommend it. Next up is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Valry. But this one, I know so many of you love Legends and Lattes. For me, Legends and Lattes was good. It wasn't amazing. I still enjoyed it, but I think I gave it like 3 or 3.5 stars. This one for me hit it out of the park. I thought the atmosphere was so cozy, so wholesome. The food talk in here, it's like watching a Studio Ghibli movie, but reading it on the page, like the description of the food, I absolutely loved. We have this bookstore, the shop is cozy, and I love the story of found family in this one. It just felt, I don't know, it felt like it had a lot more going on. Legends and Lattes, I feel like there wasn't a huge climax, or I didn't really feel like there was a lot at stake in Legends and Lattes, but this one we start out with a war going on, and the whole time we have this underlying element of like this necromancer, and these bad guys are coming after them, and kind of like an actual battle that ends up happening. So I feel like that added more to the story and a little bit more I don't know, action at least. I loved all the characters in this. I loved Pot Roast, which is like this little dog creature thing, and it was just so good, so wholesome, and just makes you feel nice and cozy. Next is a graphic novel called Pumpkinheads. I am obsessed with this book. Even now thinking about it, I'm like, wow, this was so good. It is a graphic novel, and we have these friends who it's their last night working at the pumpkin patch, and it's like a fall festival thing that they've been working at for years throughout high school. And it's the last year, it's the last night it's gonna be open. And it just has all this atmosphere. It's super cozy. The images and the illustrations are fantastic. This one's by Rainbow Rowell, by the way, and then the illustrator is Faith Erin Hicks. I just love the atmosphere, the food talk in here. They have so many like nice fall treats, and it is a fall festival, so you have like hay rides and like the pumpkin patch and like just so many different elements that bring the fall feels, and it's just wholesome, cozy. I can't recommend it enough, especially just during the fall season. Pick it up, you can read it in like less than an hour even, so definitely give it a go. Next up is Never Whistle at Night. This is an anthology of Indigenous authors, and it's like dark fiction. It doesn't right out say like horror, but a lot of them are more on the scary horror end. I feel like this is probably the best anthology I've ever read. Typically anthologies, it's like there might be like a couple of stories within there that you're like, that was great, and then the rest are just kind of like meh. Almost every one in here was amazing, and there might have just been like 1 or 2 that I was like, it was good but not great, but like pretty much all of them were great. So if you're an anthology person, give this a go. I also love the representation in here. Every story is by an Indigenous author, so that's amazing. And yeah, it's really creative, super unique. These stories are like, took me to places where I was like, wait, what? Like that's something I had never heard of or thought of. So yeah, it really hit the nail on the head with all of them, and I just loved all of these authors packed up into one. There's so many amazing authors in here. Next is a thriller by Kene Minato called Confessions. I'm obsessed with this book. This book hits so many different elements and takes you on a ride. It starts off with this woman who her child has passed away, and she is a professor, and she's talking to her students on the last day of school, and she's like, I'm not coming back to teach, I'm done. And then she ends up dropping a bomb and being like, you know, I am pretty sure some of y'all killed my kid. And she ends up saying a few things to where my jaw was on the floor. I was like, whoa, what? We switch POVs throughout the book and kind of hear stories from different people, different players, even family members. And then you're just like kind of seeing how this one thing spiraled and ruined all these people's lives. It was kind of genius to me. I loved how it was written. I loved the end story. It is not a happy story. It is definitely sad, but wow. And I feel like at the end of every POV and like every chapter and installment from these characters, my jaw was on the floor. Like it kept having twists to where I was like, what? And the way that it ended up and the reveal, so good. Next up is The Glass Witch by Lindsay Puckett. This is a juvenile fiction. I just thought this was so wholesome and sweet, but well written. Like, a lot of times with the juvenile reads, the writing might not be that great. No, the writing in this was amazing. I love the characters in here. We have this 12-year-old witch, and she's not very good at being a witch, and she has to go stay with some of her family while her mom goes and works somewhere else. And there is an underlying legend that comes to fruition, and they are on the run from these witch hunters. It's very good, just cozy, wholesome, perfect for any time, especially if you have kids. Give this one a try and read this like at night with them, because it's not scary or anything like that. It's just like a solid read, and I think you would enjoy it too as much as they would. Next is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. This one caught me by surprise. I did not expect this to go where it went. We have this girl who, she's a little bit socially awkward, and she was adopted, and her adopted father, who's a doctor, you know, he kind of took care of her, and he's older now and he passes away. And he straight up told her, you know, just like throw me out when I'm gone, just throw me out, throw me in the trash. And she took that literally, and she throws him in the trash. And then the authorities catch wind of this, and then the media catches wind of this. And from this happening, we find out more about her history, where she's from, about her family, and it spirals so much and it just ended up being totally different than what I envisioned, and very smart, unique. I absolutely loved our main character, Sally, and it's just the whole time like you're rooting for her, and you're wanting the best for her, and you're kind of also seeing like people take advantage of her too. I feel like it was brilliantly written, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. If you are a true crime person, I feel like you will for sure love this. Like, it's obviously fiction, but if you like true crime, this will be right up your alley. You should for sure pick it up. Next is A Dowy of Blood by S.T. Gibson. It is a vampire book. We are following Dracula's lovers and how he kind of like picked up these lovers throughout the years, and how he's absolutely horrible to them. And we kind of see them his lovers building this relationship together, and kind of really just being there for each other while they're all in this horrible relationship together, and they feel like they have no way out. It does end up being a very like good for her type of story. The atmosphere is killer. It is pretty short. I feel like the atmosphere being so amazing in this one was pretty was impressive to me, because a lot of times with a shorter book that can be hard. We go from different cities. I feel like they're in Paris and like Vienna, and then maybe like in Germany, I can't remember, but they're hopping around to all these different cities. And yeah, I just absolutely loved it. I loved our main character, Constanza. Yeah, I think that's her name. And yeah, if you like vampires, please give this a go. If you like just dark atmospheric reads, give this a go. If you like a good for her story, give this a go. Just give it a go. I really enjoyed it. I also, looking in Goodreads now, it says A Dowy of Blood #1. So I guess there's more to this. So I'm gonna have to look into that, because I will definitely read what's next. I'm so happy to say that I had a 5-star haunted house read in 2023. It's A Good House for Children by Kate Collins. Now, I love haunted house books. I am a big fan of the trope. It's probably my favorite. If there is a successful haunted house book, I love it. I just feel like it's kind of hard to write, just because everything's kind of been done within that realm, you know what I mean? But I just love a good haunting so much. And this one brings it. We have 2 generations in this one. So we're following like a generation, I want to say it's the 60s or 70s. She's a nanny in this house, and things start to go on with the ghost. And then we're also following present day, a mom and her kids, and her husband is like, goes off to the city and works and comes back on the weekends kind of thing. They kind of both end up going through the same issues, and you're seeing these parallels between them. What ends up happening, I absolutely love how this spirals. I love that it doesn't wrap everything up with a bow, and that we don't technically have like the happiest ending. I love that. And our main characters are great. I feel like they made good decisions, and they were smart the whole time, and they really tried their best to take care of the children in the home. And I feel like there were definitely parts in this where I was like, oh, that's scary, that's eerie, that was a really good scene. So yeah, I love this. We're also like in England, on the coast of England, so it's a large home, which I love it. I love that atmosphere. if you like hauntings, definitely pick this up. I feel like it's such a solid read. Next is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a Carrie retelling and I loved it. Like, for an updated take on the story, this hit it out of the park. I loved our main character. I felt sorry for her. It also does a good way of, you know, a lot of these kids are villains in this story and how she's bullied and how people treat her, as well as her dad. And it's so successful in making you really dislike those people. You're just like, oh my gosh, like, yes, get revenge on them kind of thing. So, and it's just so satisfying at the end. I also think that this took an interesting turn at the end too that I did not anticipate. It also seamlessly like pulls in elements of race and just talks about those so eloquently. So overall, can't recommend it enough. If you like Carrie, if you like the original story of Carrie, definitely give us a go. Again, a really good, a really amazing, good for her story and revenge story. Next is Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. Now, this might be a little bit different than a lot of the other books because, you know, I typically read horror and more thriller things, but this one, I wouldn't call it a romance. It's more of a like contemporary fiction, I guess. But we are following this woman as she falls in love with this man, and the relationship is really beautiful, but then it shows them falling out of love and how things change. And it just shows a beautiful story of how people can have these feelings or they can fall out of love and then things can change, and how feelings aren't reciprocated all the time, and you know how really you have to like work through your own problems to really get love and find the correct love and the right love for you. It's just a beautiful story. I was so invested in this main character. I wanted her to be happy so badly, and it's great because you really see some growth with her. And yeah, this isn't a romance. I wouldn't describe it as a romance because it is mostly just like about our main character and like how you have to love yourself and finding joy within yourself to grow and find something better within the future and to find true love. It's beautiful. I highly recommend it. It made my heart so sad but so happy at the same time. Next is Ghost of the Orphanage. This is a nonfiction, and it is talking about the history of orphanages, especially Catholic ones, throughout the 1900s, and how they were very horrible to the children. But absolutely horrible conditions for these kids, up to the point of like actual murder of these children. It's a very hard book to read. It goes into the stories of these people. They are telling what they went through. So just keep that in mind, and them trying to find some sort of justice from the church and from these orphanages. It's brutal and it's really frustrating to read. I cried multiple times throughout, so just keep that in mind. But I feel like it's a really important story to tell, and something that I feel like we don't really think about all that often, but like how horribly I feel like children were treated so horribly in the past anyway, but especially in these conditions, it's absolutely astonishing and just so sad to read. If you are interested in like true crime or anything like that, this is definitely a good one to pick up and different than a lot of the other true crime you might read. Next is another nonfiction called Where Are Your Boys Tonight by Chris Payne. Now this is basically just a history of emo and how emo like came about in the late 1990s through 2008-ish is what it covers. And it really covers kind of how it all blew up and how there was a time where emo music really just ruled the whole music scene and the world there for a minute. And if you were ever emo or into the emo scene like I was, is it obvious that I am an elder emo, that I was an emo kid at one point? I feel like it is pretty obvious. If you enjoy that type of music or you lived through that, especially like those first few waves of emo, I can't recommend this enough. It's just so interesting, and it's an oral history, so we are reading the story through the lens and actual quotes from the people involved, like Burt McCracken and Max Bemis and so many people within the scene. It's so cool to read about, and I just loved it so much. I ate it right up. So I can't recommend it enough. If you are into emo music at all, I would for sure pick this up. Now, I do think you need to have an understanding of who these characters are, but who these people are, because we are following numerous characters, like dozens of people from the scene. Might be kind of hard to follow if you are not familiar with who they are, so just keep that in mind. But if you are at all, then you should pick this up. You will love it. Now, I'm not going to go into this one too much because everyone knows what this is, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I picked this up, I mean, I was really early on to the Fourth Wing craze. I read it, I want to say in June, and it was like right after it came out. It was available on Scribd. Now, well, Scribd is called Everin now, but and it was free on there, so I read it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like for a long time, fantasy had kind of been just disappointing or underwhelming to me, and I feel like this one, I had such a fun time. Is it the best written thing ever? No. Did I like the relationship and I thought it was spicy? Yes. So there are a lot of elements in here that I really enjoyed, and I thought it was just a fun, good time. It also doesn't feel YA. I feel like that's another issue I have a lot with fantasy is I'm reading it, I'm like, this feels very YA to me. So, and I didn't get those feels from this. So that's a thumbs up. And I felt like for a long time I was just like not loving fantasy, and this kind of like re-sparked that joy with fantasy for me. So I recommend it. I'm sure everyone has recommended it, so I haven't read the second one yet. I checked it out a couple times and I just haven't gotten to it, but I'm sure at some point this year I will be reading Iron Flame. I'm trying to adjust because the lighting is getting all weird, but next is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I don't think I'm saying that correctly. I apologize. This is a historical fiction set in World War II, and we are following multiple characters on this journey to try to get to a German cruise liner so that they can get out and escape and get out of this war zone. It's really interesting because I feel like a lot of times we don't really see stories from the POV of the people involved on the German side. And of course, these people, they're just innocent people. They are caught in the crossfires in this horrible situation, and they're trying to escape as well. So it's based on the true story of the sinking of this boat. And from the beginning, you kind of know that people that go to this boat and are on this certain boat trying to escape, they will pass because the boat sinks. It's actually like the largest death toll of a ocean liner in history, which is kind of wild because I had never heard of it before reading this. And I'm big into like sinkings of books. Like I really enjoy reading about historical tragedies. This started when I was very young with Titanic, when I was in like first grade. I became mesmerized with it. Also like the sinking of the Lusitania is very interesting. Like Dead Wake is a great book too. But yeah, I had never heard of this incident, and I just feel like this story was so emotional. You have so many characters and just the different POVs and kind of their journey to try to get away. And you know that a lot of them, it's like there's no hope for them because you know how it ends. It's brutal. If you are into like historical tragedies like Titanic, Pompeii, those kinds of things like I am, and you find them kind of fascinating and you enjoy learning about them, I would definitely pick this up, even though it is fiction. But I feel like there's some elements to it that would really, you would find that you would really enjoy reading about and learning about too. So yeah, definitely recommend. Next is the 8th book in the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. This is the one series that I'm like, I love this, and I keep picking it up, and I just love the idea of the story and the different worlds that you get brought into, and the idea of like walking through these doors into all these fantasy worlds. I feel like it's so successful in what it does, and they're also quite short, the books are, so you don't feel like you're waiting to read this huge chunk of a book every single year. You know, it's usually a quick, easy read, and you're following different characters in each book pretty much, but they all do come together. And the one that came out last year, Lost in the Moment and Found, was probably my favorite that I've read so far of the series. I'm not going to go too far into it because it is like the 8th book, but if you want like a fantasy that's a little bit eerie, a little bit spooky, definitely pick these up. I feel like this has so many elements to it that I just love, and it brings in like a mix of fantasy with horror that I feel like it's hard to find. And I just love this book so much. This one is about a girl who goes through multiple doors and she has access to all these doors, which typically it's like you find one and that's it. But she gets to go to all these different worlds, and I love the story. I loved our main character in this one. And then how it ended up like tying other things in. It's just so clever, and I love the series so much. So yeah, can't recommend it enough. I would definitely give it a go. I'm actually reading the 9th installment that just came out right now. So yeah, it's just always a good time. Next is The Social Climber by Amanda Pellegrino. Now this is a girly mystery thriller and I really loved it. It's kind of funny. It's a little bit strange. It definitely has some funny elements to it, but we have our main character who has worked her whole life to really climb the social ladder and to kind of get everything she's always dreamed of. And she's definitely manipulative and has calculated all these different ways to grow in social class. And now she is getting married, and it's the week before her wedding, and things start coming out and things start to unravel, secrets start to unravel. But there's also things about the family that she's marrying into, as well as her and her family and her upbringing. And I just really love how it was like, I really love how it brings in the elements of the elite, but then we're also hearing it from a person who is living it now, and she's so in it, but like we know like this isn't like the society that she like belongs in. If you're into like kind of catty girly thrillers, definitely give this a go. Next up is another nonfiction called The Forever Witness by Edward Humes. Now this one, it's kind of like a twofer. We get a cold case, true crime element story going on, Jasper, but then we're also getting told, but then we're also getting told the history of genealogy and like DNA, and how over time and over the years that has, you know, just changed the game for finding serial killers. It's super interesting. The cold case talked about in here, I was totally invested in, and I just learned a lot about the history of DNA. And then also from the standpoint of how for years when 23andMe and like Ancestry.com and stuff was, you know, people were willingly sending in their DNA to these sites, and how that was just available to the cops. And it definitely a privacy issue. They were able to solve so many cold cases because of this. And now since you kind of like have to opt into that, but I feel like there is a lot of lying going on still, but it's very interesting how like just the game with solving crimes in DNA has changed so much so quickly, like in the past so many decades, that yeah, things are just so different now, and it's much easier to solve a murder and harder to get away with a murder. Yeah, fascinating. And if you like true crime at all, 100% give us a go. Okay, next is a mystery thriller. It is on KU. It's called The Quarry Girls by Jess Laurie. I love this book. It's definitely fast-paced. The story is unique, shocking. We're following the POV of these kids, and they have stumbled across some interesting things that have happened. They know some things, and they also know that within this town that multiple girls have gone missing. And this town is like set upon this community where there was like a quarry, and I feel like it's somewhere cold. Like, I don't know if it was Michigan or like Minnesota or what, but it's somewhere where like in the winter, they still needed these people to easily get to and fro to work. And this town was just built for this quarry pretty much. So under all the houses, like in the basement, there's a door that opens up to a tunnel, and you can just walk straight through the tunnel to the quarry to go to work back in the day. So there's like this weird, eerie atmosphere of these tunnels. The quarry is defunct now, so it's almost like a ghost town, but you know, the kids that still live there, they play in these tunnels, and these kids stumble across something there, and we're kind of wondering, who can we trust? The people in the town, there are definitely people that are have high authority that people look up to, and then you're like, who's the bad people here? And it's just you trying to figure out who's actually the bad people and who's to blame for these missing girls. It's so good, fast-paced, and on KU. So definitely give it a go. It's also like, I'm pretty sure it's KU with the audiobook with it. So, you know, that's my favorite when that happens. So yeah, can't recommend it enough. It's a very good, it's just such a solid read. I feel like I never hear anyone talking about it. Okay, my friends, we are nearing the end. I just have a couple left. This one is one of my favorites of the year. These last two are definitely like my favorites. And that is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. This is a new release. It came out in November, and it is like Rosemary's Baby meets Salem's Lot. It's fantastic. I love everything about this. We have this couple who have recently had a child, and the child's like 1, but a terrible tragedy like happened with the birth that left the mother paralyzed, and she is in a wheelchair, but they end up getting the opportunity to move into this home in New York. So they basically won a lottery to get this apartment, and it's such a good deal, cheaper than where they were living with this horrible landlord, and they move in and everything is not as it seems. It's so good. If you like Rosemary's Baby, you know, it's my favorite. If you like Rosemary's Baby, if you like Salem's Lot, if you like vampires, you know, also another one of my favorites. It was just like everything in it that I could have wanted, it hit there. And also throughout we're getting like little nibbles of people getting picked off, and it just, it was so successful in what it was doing, and like keeping me hooked and like being like, what is actually going on here? Who, like, what's gonna happen next? And I love the commentary on womanhood. I also really love this author. Mary by him was another one of my favorites. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but a fantastic book too. And I feel like he writes women so well. And also he always does these like epilogues where he like talks about just, you know, what he was thinking when he was writing this book and what he was going through. And the one for Nestlings too was just so good and like made me love the book even more. So I can't recommend it enough. It's a total hit for me. I loved it. And my favorite book of the year is Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. I love this book so much. I have a reading vlog where I go into this, and I feel like, I'm sure if you watch that, you probably would know that this is in my top of the year, but after thinking and contemplating, I do think that this was my #1 favorite book of 2023. We have commentary on feminism and class, race, like it hits so many elements perfectly. We're following this girl who growing up was basically like a piano savant, like she was amazing at playing piano, and when she's older a horrible tragedy happens with her family and it causes her to stop playing, and she's kind of just like working at restaurants. You know, her life is totally changed, and she gets the opportunity to work at this beauty company called Holistic, and they're kind of known for like their really innovative products, and they also do like medical procedures and things like that, but things are not what they seem at this job, and we are watching our main character, how she's changing, how her life's changing, how the people around her are changing, and not for the better. And it's kind of like something where it's like they've bought into this idea of this holistic company. It's like holistic with a K, it ends with a K, but they buy into this idea that this company is amazing, so progressive, that they love their employees and they stand up for women, and you know, they're accepting and all this stuff, and they are not. You know, sorry, the lighting is so bad. But when the truth really starts coming out, it's shocking. It is, things spiral to the point where you're like, whoa. And there are scenes where, you know, she's doing these like beauty procedures and using these beauty products, and her just changing and evolving to someone that is not even, that's not even herself. And I just think this was so clever and smart, and definitely scary. The horror is there. I was shocked, and I was shocked by so much that happened in this book, and I loved our main character, and I wanted her to succeed and be happy so badly. And you know, her and her family, she's really close with them, and I cried at parts in this book because of her relationship with her family, and it is so tragic to watch everything unfold. And when you start to understand what is actually happening, you're like, oh no, like it's bad. And I feel like a lot of books try to make something like this happen to where the ending is shocking, or there's like some culty thing going on, and I feel like they don't go all the way, but this one does. The writing is beautiful, the characters are amazing, the story of friendship and just family and longing and acceptance, it's heartbreaking, terrifying, and it got me in the feels, in all the feels. If you like horror or beauty horror or really anything, I'm like, everyone should read this book. It's just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I loved it, and I was so happy to read this and find this book. It really means a lot to me. So yeah, it just spoke to me in a way that was, I can't even explain it. Yeah, so I'm just rambling now. I love this book, okay? I love it. I need to go because this light is like really the worst, but yes, we have made it, my friends. We are at the end of this video. I have gone through my best books of 2023. Out of 145 books, I had a lot of really good ones, a lot of hits, a lot of 5 stars. And I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with me through 2023. And now I started my YouTube channel last summer, and it's just been really fun to be able to talk about books with you all and just discuss my thoughts and, you know, have conversations with you all in the comments. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. And so yeah, if you like reading vlogs, book reviews, wrap-ups, TBRs, please subscribe. I will have some more videos coming soon. And especially if you like horror books and mystery thrillers, that's my specialty. So yeah, please subscribe if you are interested in that kind of content. And yeah, if you could give me a thumbs up, that would help me a lot, especially just getting back into the swing of things with filming and posting. So yeah, I appreciate you, and I am so excited to see where we go in 2024 and what amazing reads we have this year. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day.